Alright, what's up guys? We're back with another lesson. Today we're going over I Will Not Bow by Breaking Benjamin. Same as my Awaken tutorial, B sharp. So if you've seen that, you know what's going on, but if you didn't, it's just basically, well, B flat I meant to say, and it's basically just A sharp. So yeah, get tuned up to that on your tuner or whatever, your phone, your manual tuner, whatever you got. Just get tuned up to that and we'll get right into it. So it starts off with this little intro thing. After he says fall is when the guitar first kicks in, and that is so that's a O2, and then hit 2 again, and then 2, 3, 2, and then back to that. So, and then you hit 2 twice, and then O2, 3 on the A, like that. And then you do the same thing, start it over. But when you hit your 2 twice, you slide it up to the 5th fret this time. And then that's when the harmony, well, the octaves kick in. And notice 15 and 17. 15 on the A, 17 on the G. Then 14. 14 A, 16 G. Then 10 A, 12 G. Then 7 A and 9 G. Then back up to the 10. And then up to 12, 12 and 14, and then 15, 14. So, like that. And then that's when the verse kicks in, which doesn't really have any guitar played over it that you can really hear, but I'll just show you what I would do, which would be a 2, and then a A, and then kind of like that, because you kind of hear that little. So just let that ring out a little bit. So that's going to be 2 on the E. Begins to rise, and then say breath it's far from over, like that. So that's going to be, your second shape is going to be an A power chord, just A, 3rd fret, and D, 5th fret. And then open E, and then B and E. And then back to the same thing. Alright, so that's the verse section. Now we're going to get into the pre-chorus, which I notice a lot of people can get confused, but from what I've seen live of the guitarist doing, it's kind of something like this. Alright, so that is a 2nd fret palm muted. Hit that 3 times, and then O, and then 5, 7, and then 5 on the A, 7, and then 7 on the E, and then 5 on the E, and then back to 7. And then you hit your 2s again, and then O, 5, 7, and then just 5 on the A. And then that'll get us to our next phrase, which is 2 on the E and 3 on the A. And then that's O, 2, 4, 5, 4, 2, 4. And then open. You do open 3 hits this time instead of the 2. And you do O, 5, O, 4, 5, O. You don't really need to pick all of that, just pick the first one. And then you can kind of just hammer on the rest. And then that resets the riff. Plays that twice. Like that. And that's when the pre-chorus kicks in, which is a... Alright, so that is going to be a full bar off the A string. That's your first shape. And then you're going to change to a D, then to a C, then to a 5th fret, which would be the same thing as a D. So now you just got to pick them. So it's a A, D, G, B, G. And then you do D, G, B, and then you do 3rd fret on the E, and then pull it off to the 2nd. And then we get to, and then that's it. This is our C shape, so 3 on the A, 2 on the B, and 1 on the B. I mean D, and then 1 on the B, 2 on the D. Now you're just doing the same pattern. Just starting from the A, so A, D, G, B, D. And then you just come up and just do a full bar down, just pick it. Just go from A to B, straight down. And then I'll kick you into the chorus, which sounds like this. Back into the verse. Alright, so that starts off with the 2nd fret. So you got that power chord there, and then you're going to add a couple fingers to a couple different strings now. You're going to do 4 on the G, and then 5 on the B. It can be kind of a challenging stretch if you've got small hands, but that's the stretch chord. You do that for a little bit. I will not bow, I will not. And then whenever he says break is when you start the next one. And that's just going to be a octave off the 9th fret and the 11th of the G. So 9 on the A and 11 G. And you're adding that open E into it too. You hit this 3-4 times. And then you go up to 10, 12. So you take it from the 9th to the 10th to the 12th. Moving up both fingers. And then it kicks you into the, you're going to do 10 on the E, A, D, and then add your ring finger and pinky finger to the 12th fret of the G and B. And then you do O, and then back to this. And then our next octave shape, he rotates between these 2 octaves. The first one was, now we're going to be doing, it's just slightly different. Kind of hard to remember if you're like not really paying close attention to what you're playing because you're so used to it's just in the same section. So you do 1, 2, 3 on the 9, and then 10, 12, 9. So he's saving that 4th 9 you would have hit from the first one, and he's using that to come back down to here. And then it's back to that same 10 fret thing. But that's the first chorus ending, and you hit the 5th fret on the E, and then back to the verse. And then back to this. Alright, so then back to the actual verse, same things. And then the only thing is, after you do that once, it has like a new section. And you do that twice. And there's like little octaves kicking in there. We'll go over those in a second, but that is same thing we did at the intro. It's just muted this time. It's the 2nd fret. We don't add the 3rd fret to it, so you just kind of overlap it with more. And then you do 4th fret on the E and 5th on the A, and then you just hit the 5. And then you do 10, 10, 10, 10, 12, 10, 10, 10, 9, 10. Like that. You can kind of get the gist of that without me explaining it, because there's a lot to go over if I were to explain it. And then it's 5, 4, so you're going backwards this time. Alright, so then that's that section, and then there's the octaves playing over it, which are 12 on the E, and then 7 on the G, and then back to 12, and then you do 5 on the G to 7 on the B. Like that, and it's playing that over that thing we just did. So you can play either. It all depends on if you got a rhythm or not going, but even if not, it's just going to be a little open sound, but who cares? I mean, it's just you playing it, so. And once you get the hang of that, it's pretty easy to just play it a million times like it does in the song. Alright, and then it's back into the all is lost and now, but I'm not giving in. I will not bow. And then this time the chorus is doubled. And I'll survive. And it's just the same stuff repeated over it. You just keep going through those. And then so the first one's your. That's how you judge it. That'll be your first and your second for the other one. And then after that chorus is over, it goes into the bridge section, I guess. So that's going to be 7 on the A to 10 on the A. And then 6 on the D. And then 6. I said 6. This is 8. 8, 7 on the D, and then 8 on the A. And then he hits 3 palmito open E's after that. And then that's when the solo kicks in, which sounds like this. Alright, so that's the first section. We'll go over that first, and then we'll go over the second one. But that is 12 on the E, and then 15, 14, and then back up to 15, and then you do it kind of like a hammer on to 19, and then back to 15, then down to 14, and then hammer on 14 to 17, and then 15, 14, back to 12, and then back to this, 15, 14 again. So altogether we got like that. And then we got our first little fast-paced thing, which is a really simple thing. Kind of like that. So that is going to be 14 and 10. And then to 12 on the B. Then back to 10. And then 14, 10. And then you do 14 to 15. And then back down to 10. And then you do 12, 10. And then slide 12 to 15 on the B. And then 12 on the E. Like that. And it's back to the... And then we got this next section, which would be... it starts the same. But then we'd hammer on 14 to 20, and then 17, and then 15, and then down to 7 on the E. So and then you do 10 to 12 on the E. And then we got our next little fast-paced thing, which is 5, 7, 8, 5, 7, 8, 7, 5, 7, 5. But you're not picking it, you're just kind of hammering on. And then 8, 7, 8, and then 7, 8, hammer on and off, so. And then down to 5. and then you do 7 to 5. And then another 7 on the G, this time to 5 on the B. And then slotted the 7 to 9. So like that. And then that'll lead us into I will not bow, I will not break, I will and then it kicks back into the full chorus. So that is just your first chord mixed with your first octave. And then it's back into full blast chorus. And then you just play through that twice like we did before. And then after that, it kicks into the alto section, which is this. So that's just a 3-2-0, 3-2-3-2-0, 3-2-0. And then you just repeat that again. Partially. 3-2-0, 2-3. And then you do 7 to 5. And then open. Then 5 to 3 open. And then 3-2-2. Like that. And then that ends the song. So that's it for I Will Not Bow. If you enjoyed, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you all at the next one.